Hello once again and welcome back to another episode of Father and Sundays, the unexplainable guide to absolutely nothing. This week is episode 119, that's 119.
119.
Yes, and we are talking about fantasy.
Good.
So stick around if you want to know more. Hello there, Dad.
Hello there, Connor. Are you alright?
Yeah, all good.
Good.
Yeah, thanks. My name's Connor. I'm your son. Your dad. You're David. You're my dad.
I am. Is that all we're going to say this
Got
time?
that out of the way.
Yeah?
Yep.
You don't want to elaborate on that at all, no?
Well, we could elaborate, but that seems like it's not safe to share on a family-friendly podcast about how I'm your son.
Okay. Right. Okay, so how you been anyway? We're doing...
Yep.
I mean, I haven't seen you for 2 weeks.
No.
I've been waiting here to record.
In my bedroom.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed me in the corner.
Sitting in my chair in my bedroom, you've not seen me? No,
so we haven't recorded for 2 weeks, have we?
No.
And why is that?
Well, let's get it out of the way now.
Yeah.
So this episode is called Fantasy.
Yeah.
And part of this podcast is we've written our own fantasy stories.
Oh, we're going to talk about that early on, yeah?
Yeah, we're going to talk about it early on because that feeds into why we haven't done a podcast for 2 weeks.
Yes.
So we've written our own fantasy stories. However, as of 2 weeks ago, we came to the thing and I had so much going on. I went, I haven't had a chance to write these stories. And we said, why don't we hold off for a week? Okay, let's hold off for a week. Following week came, still so much going on, and actually even more this week, and I still haven't written these fantasy stories. Right, we'll hold off a week again, and we'll do it next week.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here we are, this week. Yeah, talking about
fantasy. Do you want to ask
fantasy.
if I've written them?
I'm kind of nervous to ask. Have you written any fantasy stories, Connor?
Yes, I wrote 2 this morning.
You wrote 2 this morning?
Yep.
Right, well, I've got 1.
Yeah, yours is feature length, though.
It's not quite feature length. It's just I was trying to get from the start to the finish of the story. We'll elaborate a bit more about it as we go on. Have you written any,
what were you going to say
music,
there? Music? Background music?
Movie music for your...
No, have you written music?
Yes.
Music? Is yours going to run throughout the reading of the story?
No, it's just the titles. Are you going to run one through your entire story?
I haven't written one. I just said this.
Okay. Okay. So I'm glad we got all that sorted out. So, what's been going on with you then? You've been busy. You've been working. Anything exciting happen?
No.
No.
Well, no. Well, no. Now, there has been stuff happen.
Yeah.
I can't remember 2 weeks ago.
No.
Has anything happened 2 weeks ago that was of interest?
I ran a half marathon.
Oh, yeah, you did.
If we talk about me.
Yeah.
I ran it. Oh, God, it was hard. Made harder by the fact that people were... one particular bloke towards the end, because you do these races and lots of people turn out, spectators and that, and people will have like jelly babies or things like that in a little tray, or they might have real babies for you to kiss as you run past, like people do. And they might even have drinks or things like that. But
Alcoholic.
people tend to, and like slices of orange and all the rest of it. I ran...
Between 5 people.
Eh?
What? Carry on.
What are you talking about?
Carry on.
But I ran this, and towards the end of this, there was a young fella on the side of the race course with loads of people around who'd bought a load of Magnums. When I say Magnums, I mean
the
like
ice
cream Magnums.
For any American listeners,
yes,
it's not the gun.
Yeah, that wouldn't happen in this country. So he had bought a load of them, and he was offering them to people as they ran past. And a couple of people got quite abusive towards him. I think it was because they really fancied one, but they felt that they shouldn't do that. And not since that woman, when I ran the Brighton Marathon, who offered me on something like 23, 24 miles, offered me a whole orange, which I had no idea what I'd have to do, because I'd have to peel it while I'm running along. I mean, it kind of defeats the point of just grabbing something as you're doing it. But yes, was offering ice creams to people. Now, I'm sure in that man's head, he thought, oh, this will be nice, they'll appreciate that. Didn't really go down too well. But finished that race. Was a little bit like, you always got one person that sprints through the end, like they've done nothing for the entire race. Like they've cruised round and they've got all the energy in the world. For the rest of us, it's like some sort of zombie apocalypse, because like you're kind of staggering to the line, dragging one of your legs behind you or something like that. But I finished it, and that's all that counts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I've been doing...
Oh, right, okay.
Because you're obviously interested in what I've been doing. I've been listening to and watching a lot of stuff about the paranormal.
You have, yeah, and you've been trying to encourage Becky to listen to it as well, which seems like a bad idea. Oh,
well,
not that mic. Did you hear that?
I did.
Whoa.
No, I haven't. She happened to be sitting in the room when I started watching one of these things, but I've been listening to these podcasts.
What's that?
Podcasts. Well, I've had a lot of time on my hands
What's a
waiting for you
podcast?
to write 2 stories. So, what's a podcast? It's a bit like this.
It took you long to write one story, so...
Well, no, I'd pretty much finished it.
When did you finish it, though?
Well,
When did you last write something for it?
Oh, a few days ago.
Well, there you go. You weren't ready.
Yeah, but I kept going backwards and forwards to it. Anyway, but I've been watching loads and loads of paranormal stuff. I must admit, not a good idea when you're driving to work in the dark through the countryside, which I do to work, to be listening to this sort of thing.
Which reminds me, we've still got to watch Ghosts.
Oh, we still have got to watch Ghosts, haven't we? Yeah.
And Loki.
But it's good, and the new one that is Uncanny that I've been watching, and he's a really nice. This Danny Robbins, really good presenter and everything, has got a rather strange way of introducing people. So he'll have someone come onto it and he'll describe them, right? But sort of, it's becoming, when it started, it was sort of, so say I was doing it for you.
Right?
I
felt like this is where this was going.
No, it's, I'm talking to Connor.
He's looking at a piece of paper now. He's written it down. He's
in
prepared
his
this.
mid-20s and has thick blonde hair and a full beard, including a moustache. He looks intelligent and assured. Right, so he would paint a picture of, because it was a podcast, of what this person.
You weren't very happy that I called out you reading.
No, exactly. Yeah,
you just showed me 2 fingers.
I did. Well, there's 2 things. By the time he finished it, it was like the last one I listened to. It was like, I'm talking to Connor. He's at an interesting age. His hair is like a haystack on a summer's day, and his beard and moustache is like strategically placed shredded wheat and shreddies. He has a look that says smoky bacon, but a demeanour that is more like hot Doritos.
Right, do you want me
It's just got more and more bizarre as it's gone on.
Do you want me to do one for you?
Go on then.
Okay. This is David. You may look at him and think, wow, absence of eyebrows. He's got a forehead like a wash rack. His beard can be compared to Velcro. His nose looks like a triangle of cheese.
Wow, nearly everything you said there was an insult, and yet, you know, I said you were of an interesting age and had a hair like a haystack. I mean, blimey. Okay. Anyway, I would encourage people to listen to it. It's really, really good, really, really entertaining, but perhaps pick the times that you do it. By the way, has Becky shown you any of the stuff that I've been sending her?
No.
Because I've been videoing, because the doll's house in the downstairs is haunted. And
by what? What is it haunted by?
By a
tiny little ghost.
Some sort of poltergeist. And
Stuart Little.
I set up a video after I came down one day and all the furniture was piled up in it. I left a video running, and
there's children that play with that.
Yeah, I've caught 2 instances of the paranormal on it, and I've been sending them through to Becky. It's incredible if you want to talk to her about it. Anyway, well, back to the subject matter.
No, I haven't said what I have been doing. I've got a new game, but there's not much time to talk about it.
Well, you can talk about it. I asked you a couple of times what you've been doing,
well,
and you kind of was a little bit.
Trying to do things in order.
What have you been doing, Connor?
Playing a game.
Yeah, is it good?
Yep.
What is it?
Spider-Man 2.
Yep. Electric Boogaloo.
No.
But it is good.
Yes.
Yes. Anything else you want to talk about?
City Skylines 2 comes out this week. I'll be playing that as well. I've got the week off. I'll be playing video games.
Really?
Yep.
Not preparing for next week's podcast?
No.
No? Right. That'd be interesting then, won't it?
It's the same what we do every week.
That is very true. That is very true. Right.
The only reason we weren't ready the couple of weeks ago is because I had to prepare something.
That is true. Yeah, that always becomes a stumbling block, doesn't it?
Well, we're 10 minutes in.
I'll give you. Yeah, I know. But it's a different sort of one. This particular one, it's going to run in a different way. We haven't got a quiz at the end of it, and
Have we not?
No, I haven't done a quiz at the end of it.
I might have to ask you some questions then about my story.
Well, you might have to ask questions about my story as we go through. It might be a way of
doing it.
You
might have to ask questions about my story as we go through.
And you might have to ask questions about my story.
And you might have to ask questions about my story.
Oh, God, this is terrible. Right. Fantasy. Now, the definition is the faculty or activity of imagining impossible or improbable things. But, when we think of it in the context of, I guess for us, fantasy films, fantasy books,
We're both males, but not to be confused with the male fantasy.
Sorry? What? What, that sort of fantasy?
Yeah, not that
No,
kind.
no, I'm talking about more wholesome.
We're talking about almost
family friendly.
The genre.
The genre of fantasy films. So a fantasy film definition, any type of fiction that does not aim at naturalism or realism, but which creates and explores impossible, alternative, or magical worlds.
Words.
Oh, I nearly got through that.
Abracadabra.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, we've spoke about this before, and we spoke about the fact that, strictly speaking, stuff like sci-fi falls into Santa Fe.
Yeah,
Santa Fe.
That's the
genre.
Christmas when you watch one at Christmas. Yeah,
I like that.
Well,
Nice.
no, it does
Well
because
done.
the genre.
Well done, Dad.
Yeah, I was going to say about I've got a dog that does magic. Yeah,
A dog.
it's a
Abracadabra.
Labrador.
Abracadabra. I can't say it.
No, you can't. Right.
Anyway, but we spoke about, and we've done a whole podcast on sci-fi before as well, haven't we?
We have done one on sci-fi, and I guess when I started thinking, the immediate thing I think of when I think of fantasy films is kind of your Lord of the Rings, right? Because I kind of, if someone said to me, "Oh, I like fantasy films," I think of sort of almost medieval, but with dragons and other mythical beasts. And things like that.
Here's something that Smaug. It's not a dragon. The one from
Pete's Dragon.
I don't know about Pete's Dragon. I'm pretty sure the ones from Game of Thrones, they're not dragons.
They're not dragons. I thought
think
they
they're
were
all.
dragons.
I think the one from
Isn't she
Shrek is not a dragon. I think they're all wyverns.
Right, because she's the mother of dragons.
Yeah, but I think they're wyverns that they've got.
I think we've been through this. What's the difference between a wyvern? This is not a joke.
This is like a setup for a joke, doesn't it?
What's the difference between a dragon and a wyvern?
Well, I'm pretty sure. So one of them has wings attached to their arms, and the other one just has wings on its back.
Ah. Well, might be some interesting information coming through on that. We'll just have to see, won't we?
Well, the computer's made a notification noise.
Yeah. But no, that's what I think of. But then you think of something like another sort of...
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yeah. But then you think of Harry Potter. Harry Potter is a fantasy film. It's taking things that we recognise, so just people. Yeah,
I recognise people.
Yeah. And
You're David.
School. Yeah, but it's taking it even to the fact that in Harry Potter there's the Muggles and there's the magic folk.
That's very rude,
right?
Calling them Muggles.
No, but what I'm saying is, it takes a world that we can look at and recognise, but in amongst that is all these fantastical things.
I think that's true. When most people think of fantasy, they tend to think of medieval fantasy, which is where the likes of Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones come in, because they are leaning towards your medieval fantasy, though not necessarily set in that time. The instruments they use, such as swords and guitars and stuff like that, are all from a medieval era.
Guitars?
Yeah, I said instruments. So I'm checking the musical.
Right, okay. I did wonder, because that seemed to you. I thought you were just seeing if I was paying attention, but I wasn't. No, I was.
Well, you was, because you picked up on it.
I did pick up on it. So even something like Avatar. Avatar is a fantasy film.
Yeah.
It's very much sci-fi, but then you've got creatures in that may or may not exist, depending on what you think. I mean, there's many people that think some of these. When you think of something like Game of Thrones, you talk about dragons. There's many people who think dragons existed at one point. There's still people that think that dragons exist now.
Yeah.
So
and like Lord of the Rings, there's quite a lot of people that think dwarves exist.
Yeah. I don't know what to say.
Do you know the amount of people that genuinely believe that dwarves are mythical creatures is unreal?
Well, I guess
from that context, the context of like Lord of the Rings and the likes of that, they do have dwarves as a almost a race.
Yeah, a race of people
of miners and stuff like that. Now, in reality, people with dwarfism are people with dwarfism in the real world.
Yes,
but these dwarves were almost a subspecies of human.
But it's a different,
two almost different things. But then they actually spell it differently as well.
With a V rather than an F.
Yeah,
maybe. Elves is different depending on what sort of elf you're talking about. Yeah. So no, but I love these films. I really do. I love Tolkien. I mean, when I read Lord of the Rings, I read The Hobbit first, and then I read Lord of the Rings.
I've read bits of The Hobbit.
Yeah, I read you bits of The Hobbit as well. I thought it'd be a really nice thing for like a father-son sort of moment where I'd sit in your bedroom and before you went to sleep, talk to you about all these this incredible journey and these like trolls and the goblins and
There's
the orcs.
a lot of walking, though, isn't there?
There's a lot of walking. You didn't need to do any of that. I was actually going to explain that because Tolkien created not just a world in Middle Earth, and all these different races of people, but the language you use as well. And it comes down to, with these ones, a lot of fantasy films, books, whatever, is based on sort of legend and based on myths. So
myth
or real. So Tolkien, obviously, he developed an Elvish language, but he also based a lot of it on Scandinavian myths and legends.
You said about a lot. He created a lot of different races, but he didn't, because a lot of the stuff he came up with for The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings were already written. That like they were already, like you said, they were derived from legends.
Yeah, so he invented certain creatures, but there was quite a lot of creatures that already existed in folk tales,
like goblins and
and maybe the actual
elves, maybe not hobbits.
What the version he created was a different sort of. I think hobbits was a invention of his. Halflings, but halflings are probably the term halfling had probably featured in other stuff as well.
Yeah,
but it's difficult. But you're talking about and the Harry Potter series. You're talking about a story, but then the amount of information beyond that. So the characters in the Tolkien stories all have a backstory as well, and there's other books that sort of complement the main books that people read.
Can you do an impression of Gollum?
Not as good as you, no.
Oh, do you want to give it a go?
I think we've been here before with this, and I think you should do your Gollum impression.
I think you should do yours first.
Perhaps you should do... How long have we been going now?
About almost 18 to 20 minutes.
Perhaps you should end this portion of this podcast by being Gollum.
Yeah, this seems very fluid, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
Right, we'll see you soon, Hobbitses. I'll see you after this next bit. Preciouses.
Brilliant.
Oh, excuse me, love.
How can I help you, madam?
I'd like to buy some jam.
Jam, you say? Is that all for today?
Yes, unless you've got some ham.
Ham? Dear Lord, how dare you, ma'am? Who do you think I am?
I thought you were a shopkeeper, but all you said is jam.
Right, I do. Just jam. We sell jam. If you want anything else, you can off the budgeons.
Well, it was nice of Gollum to join us.
That was uncanny, wasn't it, to see us through to the end of the last section and into the next one. And really...
What's the Hobbit's got in his pockets?
Oh no, we're going to have
that's it.
Punctuate for the rest of it, have we? Actually, when we come to the stories, I would like to apologise about the accents that I might use, because I'll probably forget halfway through who's who and everything else.
Got mine as well.
Yeah. Anyway, so The Hobbit, the book The Hobbit, 1937, that was published. So, you know, I mean, there was a lot of talk about, because a lot of these things are good and evil. In most of these stories, it is good and evil, or a variation, but someone in between.
Anakin's point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Exactly. I mean, I know you like to say that in pretty much every podcast we do, but you got to think around. We're talking
That's
now
fantasy.
Around the time, and he did serve in the war as well, Tolkien. That you've got. And I think he talked about this. What?
I'm saying the Jedi are like space wizards.
They are. So,
Getting angry.
No, I'm not.
You seem to be getting angry.
You say things underneath and I can't hear them straight away, so I have to go back and ask you. No, so he's talked before about sort of the light and dark, and I suppose the Allied forces and the Nazis and that, and there's correlations between that when you start looking at it. But that was in 1937. I mean, obviously the films, 2012, 13 and 14. The Lord of the Rings book, 1954, with the films that really did change an awful lot, because I'd seen fantasy films before this, and because the effects, I mean, even going on from the Lord of the Rings now, the effects are incredible, but that really did see a change, because they did attempt to do an animated one, which took it up to, I think, the Fellowship of the Ring a bit, but they never completed that. It was in the 70s. But no one would take it on because, people would say, we'll just do it in one film, which would never have worked. If you'd have thought of that, it'd have really rushed
it's not
everything.
Enough walking.
Yeah, exactly. But when they agreed to do it, and he did have to fight Peter Jackson to do it in 3 films, I was so excited.
And then
I can remember
Hobbits into 3 films as well.
Exactly. But I was really excited about it. I remember talking to people about it and seeing pictures that never really did it justice at the time. Connor Harding.
Yes, sorry, my hand up. You watched the Amazon Prime series as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah, which was sort of the prequel of, or it takes place
because
before.
Everyone, it was meant, because from everyone's, what they thought was going to be was essentially a remake of The Lord of the Rings, but in a series. But it wasn't, was it?
I don't know that. No, I don't know that I ever thought it was going to be that. I thought it was going to take place before those events.
Was it good?
And I enjoyed it. I mean, people get a bit precious about this stuff. Oh yeah, very good. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Precious.
Oh, there you go. You did it.
People do
got there eventually.
Get about everything, don't they? They think, I mean, there's going to be a new Harry Potter sort of series, which is going to be more faithful to the books and really try to capture everything that was in the books. Whereas obviously films, they often cut out bits that don't seem to sit within it and don't flow.
Let's
properly.
be honest, a book takes longer to read than
exactly.
a film takes to
So
run.
I guess people were looking at that and saying, oh, well, I thought it was really good. I thought it was well made. It looked incredible. As
Do you
we
reckon
say,
Peeves will be in the...
yes, I think Peeves will be in the Harry Potter ones. I think a lot of the things that were missed out, and like you say, if you read the book, you think, oh, that's a shame, but it doesn't make sense. The films are incredible.
To be fair, Peeves doesn't really make sense. He's the only one that's got colour amongst all the ghosts.
Well, there's these ghosts, and then there's this poltergeist that appears and disappears and creates havoc, and yes, seems to be very different to everything else within that world. But no, it'd be good. I mean, they had Rick Mayall had even, I think, filmed, but they cut all that out and it wasn't put it in the end. I mean, that was made for him, something like that, Rick Mayall. But yeah, I mean, these films are very popular. Lion and the Witch of the Wardrobe. I mean, it features talking beavers and Father Christmas. So, I mean, that's everything you want out of a film, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they made, I mean, the books came out from 1950, like a series of books, Chronicles of Narnia.
They were set during the war, weren't they?
Well, that was, they were evacuated. And when they were evacuated, it's a bit weird because the books don't quite, so
they don't follow the same order as the...
Well, obviously the famous one is The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. But when you look at the series, sometimes it's listed as, I think it's called The Magician's Nephew, which is the first one, and then the second one's a Lion, the Witch and Wardrobe. But whether that works or not, it depends who you talk to how it should run.
The Lion, Witch and Wardrobe film was very, very good. And I don't think any of the others were quite as good as that one.
Yeah, but I think, and I've talked about making that again as well and trying to reboot that. And you're right, I really enjoyed the first one. And to be honest, I haven't seen the third one. They only made 3 of the books. But the second one was all right. But, but people just...
Wasn't the second one Prince Caspian? Or?
Prince Caspian. And the third one was the
Not
Voyage of
Kasabian,
Dawn.
because that's Sarge.
Treader or
Surge.
Yeah. Sorry. Sarge.
Sergeant Major.
But then you talked about Game of Thrones. Now, Game of Thrones is huge. It's got seems to have a balance of... we talked about Talking Beavers and Father Christmas. Hasn't got either of them in it. Certainly not Talking Beavers. But there's a huge amount of nudity, a great deal of violence.
There is a three-eyed raven, though.
There's a three-eyed raven. There's a lot of comedy in the Game of Thrones. It's quite funny. Some of the characters are incredibly good characters within it. And that took over the world, didn't
House
it?
of Dragon.
Yeah, and then that's had this, and that's a prequel, isn't it? It's about the
Targaryens,
yeah.
Yeah, it did end not that great. Game of Thrones last season wasn't all that. You haven't watched it, have you?
I haven't watched it. No,
you're leaving it on a high.
Well, no, I do need to, but I didn't. The last few episodes, which apparently, according to a lot of people or people who have talked about it, are really tried to rush everything through. And
yeah,
but again, the look of that series, and that's where we're spoilt these days with the effects that they can use. Because the look of these series, they can do these landscapes, they can do these big battles, and they can do everything. Connor Harding, have you got another question?
I just want to clarify with the Game of Thrones thing is the pacing. So throughout the entirety of the Game of Thrones series, they pace things really steadily, don't they?
Yeah.
Like you go from one bit to another, and it's just kind of like this bit, and then sometimes it gets really exciting where there's a whole episode with an entire battle, like the Battle of the B words.
Yeah.
That was the one that sounds like bar stewards.
Yeah, I had actually got that.
Not bitches.
I really didn't. I don't know why you had to do that, but never mind. Yeah, I knew it took that. Actually, there was elements of that was when I watched that series was actually breathtaking.
Yeah.
And I can remember one particular part in that battle which I actually really struggled to watch.
Yeah,
because of how well it was done.
And there's all of that, but then the last series, you can almost tell, oh, hang on, we've only got one more series left. We've got to basically tie off all these loose ends.
Yeah.
And rather than you spreading out, like everything happened in fewer episodes, because in earlier series they used to have more episodes, and the later series only had like 10.
Did they
series.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, so they did, or like 6 mo.
Were they longer episodes though?
Ever so slightly, but it felt like they were really rushing the last few, because there was like for example, like you might have 1, maybe 2 big battles an entire season of Game of Thrones previously, and this last season had like 3 or something like that.
All right, okay.
Anyway,
but even the only thing with Game of Thrones is
still very good.
What they didn't do well is there wasn't enough talking animals, and I think I like my films and books and whatever to have many talking animals in it.
Yeah, like Planet of the Apes.
Like Planet of the Apes, yeah. But specifically, sort of even
Over the Hedge,
Lord of the Rings. over the head.
It's got talking animals in it.
It has got talking animals, but it's not a fancy. Well, it is to
It is
the point
fancy
that
'cause they're
these
talking.
animals don't actually do it. Yeah. So are we saying that any film that's got talking animals, in
Any
it,
film that's not based on a true story,
Is
any
fantasy.
film that isn't true, like for example Titanic, could that be considered fantasy? Because the characters of Rose and Jack weren't real people
Yeah,
of
but-
the Titanic. That isn't a true story.
so it's fiction.
Although a lot of people believed that for a long time that it was a true story, but it's not a true story. Just to clarify, anyone listening who isn't aware, that's not a true story. The Titanic sinking is. The Rose and Jack
but
is not.
that's just fiction and non-fiction, as opposed to it being. So it's taking an event and just flowering it up,
Like
making
Independence Day.
making a story within it.
Like Independence Day.
Well,
That is an event.
It is an event, but it's an
But
event that
aliens don't
hasn't
come.
happened.
No, Independence Day happened,
Oh,
But-
Independence Day
but
happened.
not the alien bit.
Yeah, but that's reaching a little
Not
bit.
World Independence Day.
No, I think we're getting confused
Day
here.
after tomorrow.
So
We always get days after tomorrow.
Yeah, I know that, but they're specifically about an event. So you can have a something that's happened in time that's actually happened, and then
Is Bruce
instead
Almighty a fantasy film?
oh no, you're just gonna keep thinking of films as saying it. Bruce Almighty, it's a comedy.
Space Chimps?
Well,
The
there were
Grinch.
chimps. No, see, the space chimps, right? Space chimps. There were chimps that were sent into space,
And they speak.
no.
They do.
What, in space chimps they do, but not in actual real life. So that's taken a real story and just put a spin on it with talking animals.
When they land on an alien planet and speak to the aliens.
Yeah, well, that part of it's made up. But chimps did actually go into space, so there's an
Yeah.
element of truth within that story.
There's some dead animals in space, isn't there? There's quite a lot of dead animals.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of the animals they sent
that's
up.
what we
Obviously
spoke
didn't come
about.
back down here, get hit round the head by a Labrador, not a
Yeah.
abracadabrador.
Abracadabrador.
But it's
Yeah.
it's perilous. We've got an episode coming up
About dead
about
animals
the
in space?
planet, so I'm sure we'll touch on that again there.
Have we almost got to the end of your notes?
Well, no, I mean,
Because I've distracted you.
other things. Willow, I enjoyed Willow.
They cancelled
They
the-
cancelled that, and he wasn't very happy about that. But I enjoyed that. That was one of a film I saw early on in my cinema career. Legend with Tom Cruise before his nose job.
Not
And
I
that
Am
was quite
Legend.
good. And that Legend has got one of the most incredible pieces of makeup on a character ever, with Tim Curry as kind of the devil he was in it. Just absolutely incredible. And his Dark Materials, now that it's a bit like I said about it takes a world and then literally spins it on its head. It's sort of got all these different realities within that world. And that's got to be regarded as fantasy as well. But I love it. And all these fresh ideas. I love a bit of medieval fantasy. I also like this new sort of stuff and stuff that sort of merges with sci-fi and I love Harry Potter. I still really love Harry Potter, so that's a biggie for me as well.
In Narnia, doesn't Father Christmas give one of them a knife?
He gives them gifts.
A hand grenade.
I don't think he gives them a hand grenade, no. Knife, potentially. But, you know.
One of them gets like a liquidy medicine thing, don't they?
I think they're all given
It was a bit,
gifts.
to be honest, as a child, it was a bit like, these are rubbish presents. Why
Well,
not Lego?
Well, yeah, but in the context of where they were in Narnia, the Ice Queen coming towards them. Oh, hang on, I'll make a little
Ice Palace.
ice palace. I'll make a little Lego set.
Make a Lego Ice Palace for us to move into.
You need more, something useful, something tangible, something that
Millennium
can actually
Falcon.
help you. The Millennium Falcon is not going to help you against the Ice Queen, is it? So, I mean, all right, he could have. Connor, you could have had a little stocking with a Satsuma in it, a Millennium Falcon. Yeah, this week's copy of Batman and I don't know,
You were really shocked there, weren't you?
and some nuts and some chocolate and that.
Is
And
there anything
really,
else on your list?
what to talk about?
Yeah.
And well, Not really. Dungeons and Dragons I was going to mention because obviously gaming as well.
Have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons?
I played it once. I played it round someone's house, and I loved the models more than anything else. I used to really enjoy looking at them and painting and doing all the models. But I found that really frustrating, Dungeons and Dragons, because we played, and I was with two other people, and it was going all right, and I was doing okay, and it almost felt like the person that was running the game could see I was doing all right and just invented something to wipe out my people or my armies or whatever, because he suddenly had this Balrog from somewhere and bang, all my stuff was gone.
Are you sure you weren't playing Warhammer?
No, it was definitely Dungeons and Dragons, but it might have been Warhammer.
It sounds like it might be Warhammer.
Yeah, anyway, well, it's that sort of thing
like
anyway.
the old one.
But it's still really popular. I mean, it's still, and people, quite famous people as well, doesn't
Henry Cavill.
Yeah, he's a big...
Yeah. Skyrim was a big video game. Yeah, he's a big man.
Yeah, but that takes place in the same sort of the same sort of principles as well, don't it? Fantasy. I don't know. I kind of forgot what I was saying and then couldn't find any words halfway through that, which is pretty much what this podcast has been about so far.
Yeah.
God knows what these stories are going to be like.
Game time.
Woohoo! So as we've already alluded to, this isn't your normal game time.
It isn't your normal game time, no.
So pretty much this entire podcast has been leading up to this, isn't it?
It has indeed, yes. It's been about us exploring fantasy and talking about it, but really, we want to premiere our own ideas.
Do you struggle with the word premiere then?
I'm struggling with a lot of words today.
Yeah.
I think I'm out of practice with this.
Well, we said...
And my arm seems to be twitching.
Oh.
I seem to be having spasms in one of my arms.
Oh.
Just in case that influences what happens. Are you waving at me?
Yeah, spasm.
Was it?
Wave. Spasm wave.
Was it?
Yeah, so...
Right, so you've got two stories.
I've got two stories.
I've got one.
You got one story. And I think just... Yeah, the whole reason we did this podcast, let's be honest, was so we could write our own stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So am I allowed to... not interrupt as in be really out of order, but to ask you questions about yours?
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first one I won't be able to won't need to explain that much.
Okay.
Yeah. Shall I read the first one first?
Okay. You read the first one first. I'll read the second one second, and then you can read your third one third.
Yeah.
Okay. Has this got a title? This one.
Yeah. This one has got a title. Now, this one is actually a children's story.
All right. Okay.
So what I've done is I've written two stories, and I wrote a children's story to allow them to get involved and stuff, and I've written an adult story as well.
An adult one. Whoa.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Anyway,
Actually, yeah, go on.
What?
No, don't matter.
So this one's called Derek the Dragon.
Nice.
Yeah. Would you like me to start? Yeah,
Compose
I'll be honest. This is a short story. There's probably not much need to interrupt too much in this one.
Okay, but take your time. Are you ready?
No, not anymore.
Because I know you seem to go to pieces when we do these. Go for it.
So it's Derek the Dragon. Derek is a dependable dragon. Many think Derek is dangerous, but he's a delightful dragon with dainty feet. Derek dabbles in several hobbies like dancing, drumming, drawing and drug taking. Derek is a daring dragon who drives a Dacia Duster. He dreams of owning a DeLorean. Derek has a number of darling friends who is delighted to describe art. But he dares not discuss drawing with dinosaurs as they are very dexterous. I've messed up. I'll try again. But he dares not discuss drawings with dinosaurs. They are not very dexterous and can get deadly when it's dropped into debates. Derek is diabetic and has decided to devour daffodils to help with this. The daftness of Derek's part led to a devastating case of diarrhea.
I wondered if diarrhea was going to come into the list with all the Ds.
Derek's dad digs up dead bodies that Dachshunds have deliberately buried them from detectives. They've gotten away with it because they because of their Dalmatian disguises. Oh my goodness!
Oh my God!
Then at the end.
Wow. Well, look, the wordplay in that was incredible.
It was hard.
It was hard to say, wasn't it? I was a little bit concerned. Did you say that was the kid's story?
Yes.
Because he takes drugs,
Yes.
Derek the Dragon, yeah?
Yeah, he does.
How do you feel about actually introducing drugs into a children's story? I don't know if
Yes.
that makes you feel a little bit...
Let's be honest.
And someone digging up dead bodies.
The thing
as
is,
yeah,
is the Magic Roundabout's been around for years, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's to do with drugs as well.
it might be that some elements of that. Yes, I know, but it's quite blatant. Yours, that was kind of.
And look, there's dead bodies all the time in Disney films.
There are. You're right. Okay, you keeping it real for the kids. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, keeping it real.
There's no good hiding things from children.
No, they need to know about Derek the Dragon and his dad's deadly.
I don't know how you
deadly
managed to find
dinosaurs.
so many things beginning with D, to be quite honest.
Check my Google history.
Oh, lovely. No, I won't, if that's okay with you.
Oh, right.
Okay. No, that was good. I like that.
Thanks. I don't know if it was good.
Oh, I thought that was good. I
Right.
thought that was a good use of the word D.
The word D?
I'm looking forward to Eric the Eel. The word D.
Well, I already did another children's book, didn't I?
You did. That was a fishy one, wasn't
Wasn't it?
No, you had Craig.
Tommy the Tuna Fish.
Yeah.
And that Tiana.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Okay, I'm up.
You're up.
Now, mine, I've got a little bit of introduction music.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Spoon of Destiny.
All right. Shall I play the introduction music?
Could you set the mood? Destiny. The hooded figure sits aloft a black stallion on the hilltop, looking at the scattering of farms and houses in the valley below. The horse's neck is slick with sweat, and jets of steam erupt from the stallion's nostrils, showing the cold, crisp air that surrounds them.
Can horses sweat?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Horses sweat all the time.
Do they?
Yes, well known. Something is moving around the horse's hooves, a living thing, but somehow nothing from this world. The figure raises his fingers to his mouth and lets out a loud whistle that echoes around the valley, violently shattering the silence. No sooner than the whistle has left the figure's twisted lips than it is answered by 3 screeches, one from the creature below and twice more from the 2 that, until then, had remained unseen on each side of the valley. The creatures begin to hunt. In a village called Destiny, many miles away, a young girl sits staring out of a window of a small wooden shack, dreaming of faraway places, exotic places, the sort of places where flinging your own poo at the neighbour's cat is frowned upon, where people wore shoes and weren't married to their cousins. Spoon, for that was the young girl's name, had heard of these far-off places from the occasional traveller passing through the village.
Is she a child of destiny?
She is a child of Spoon of Destiny. See where we're going.
She's Destiny's child.
Spoon. Spoon was rudely awakened from her daydreams by her mother shouting from the other room. What is it, mother? She answered. When you've finished daydreaming, the dog needs milking, and your granddad's got his head stuck down the toilet again.
Nice.
Spoon sighed and went to find the milking stool. It was the same routine every day. Get up at the crack of dawn to untangle the ducks, do the washing, cleaning and the cooking, run various errands, and then there was the milking of the dog, and finally pulling her granddad's head from the toilet where it had been every night, after falling asleep talking to the old man he could see in the water. Spoon slumped exhausted on the hay she called a bed and stared up at the stars, wondering if there were other girls like her doing the same thing at that exact moment, whether they had dreams and aspirations, and whether their mother had sold their roof for 20 Benson and Hedges and an assortment of paper bags. Little did she know, but this would be the last night she ever slept on that hay in that room.
Oh. Is it comfortable, the hay?
I don't think it's very comfortable.
Oh, right. What kind of dog? Big black and white one?
Dachshund.
Oh.
Spoon must have fallen asleep, for in her dream she could hear voices calling her. Spoon. Spoon. Spoon.
Did you remember the accent?
No. Spoon stirred from her slumber and
Nice.
through bleary eyes could just about see 3 faces staring back at her. "This can't be her," one of the faces said in a harsh voice. "You're calling me a liar," another face answered in an equally shrill voice. "It's the right address." The third voice was very different. It sounded wise and deep. "My dear, you need to hurry. There's no time to lose. You are Spoon, aren't you?" "Yes, I think so. Who are you?" Spoon replied nervously.
I feel like I can tell what's coming, but go for it.
"My name is Fungal Flaps, the
Oh, no.
strangely brown, and my 2 friends here are Bobble and Niggles." The 2 strange creatures took off their hats and bowed low in front of Spoon. Spoon bowed back, not really knowing what to do. "Why are you here?" Spoon asked. "We need you to come with us," said the old man. "There's danger coming, and only you can stop it." Spoon eyed the man curiously. She didn't know why, but somehow when she looked in his eyes, she trusted him. "We'll have you back by morning. Your family will never know." Spoon quickly put on some boots and a cloak. Leaving a note for her mother, she followed the 3 strangers out of the shack and through the village. "Where are we going?" Spoon asked, struggling to keep up with the old man, who was fairly sprightly given he looked like he was 1 meal away from dying from starvation. "We'll be there when it's
1 meal away from dying of starvation?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
1 meal away from... So 1 missed meal away from
right,
dying
okay.
from starvation. Perhaps that was it. "We'll be there when
eats
it's
1 meal and then he dies.
We'll be there." It's not a very nice meal. "We'll be there when it's time," the old man said unhelpfully. The unlikely foursome left the lights of the last lights of the village behind and made their way into the wilds.
They've left destiny.
Yeah. Every question Spoon asked was met with a riddle or a vague answer. To be honest, Fungal Flaps was turning out to be a bit of a dick, and the 2 others weren't much better and seemed to spend every moment arguing or hitting each other with sticks. Spoon was thinking about her patch of straw when suddenly the wizard stopped abruptly and held up his hand.
This is page 2.
Oh, God knows what page.
Oh.
She couldn't see anything in the darkness, but could just hear some
Very large
unearthly...
print.
Just heard some unearthly singing coming from the woods to their right. She'd heard tales of undead creatures who roamed the wild singing soul music, but she'd dismissed them as old wives' tales told to keep the children from wandering off. Spoon stared at the wizard in disbelief. If those cursed creatures were at large, why did he choose this path? She shuddered as she heard the voices clearer now. "You're the first, the last, my everything." Spoon shivered. Those were Barry White Walkers, all right. "If we stay on the right path, we shouldn't cross theirs. Just keep moving," the wizard whispered. Spoon pulled her cloak a little tighter around her and tried to think of nice things. But it was difficult in this wilderness. Her thoughts turned to her family, and she wondered how her mother would react when she found the note she had left. She thought her mother would be upset and confused, especially as she couldn't read. But then again, Spoon couldn't write, so it was just a scrap of paper with scribbling on it. "Darling, can't get enough of your love, babe." The wizard had halted and once again held up his hand for Spoon to stop. The voices now seemed to be right in front of them and heading their way. The wizard motioned to the left and they all scrambled their way through some bushes away from the oncoming threat. Immediately, Spoon felt hands clasped over her mouth and she struggled to get free. Fungal Flaps, Bobble and Niggles were also having their own struggles, as it appeared they weren't the only ones hiding from the Barry White walkers in the bushes. When the singing had disappeared into the distance, Spoon was released. "I'm sorry, but I couldn't risk you giving us away," said the young man who had grabbed Spoon. "My name is Tony Tifficate, and these are my cousins, Tommy Turndeaf and Colin Cumcision." "We have been sent by our village to seek help to protect our lands from the scourge of the Black Knight and his were-ferrets." "So he has reached the Southlands already then," the wizard scratched his beard. "He has taken all the land from Pringlevale to Whatsitwell, and is heading this way." "It's worse than I thought," the wizard looked worried. "We have little to no time." "Bobble, Niggles, I want you to warn the villages. Tell them to lock their doors and bar their windows. And if they haven't got doors, they need to fit doors as quickly as possible and then lock them, and the same with the windows." Next page.
To be fair, if they haven't got windows already, then they're surely just walls. So they don't need to do anything with the windows.
That's very true, but how do they get in and out of there?
Well, they've got no doors.
No, so they need to sort that out. Yeah. The two creatures disappeared and the wizard turned to Spoon. "Spoon, I thought we'd have more time, but alas, time has run out. I expect you're wondering why I asked you to come on this adventure." Spoon nodded. "Do you remember your father, Spoon? Has your mother ever told you about him?" "Only that he was a liar and a thief and had poor personal hygiene, and that he didn't care enough to stick around and raise me. But what's that got to do with anything?" Spoon was getting frustrated and angry. "I am your father, Spoon." Spoon gasped in disbelief. "Your mother didn't want you to follow in your father's footsteps, especially when you started showing signs of the gift." Spoon was struggling to find any words. "I know you probably have 1,000 questions, my dear, and I will try to answer them all. But if we don't act, then none of this will matter." "So are you the help we are seeking?" said the young man called Tony, who had forgotten I'd included. "Maybe we are, maybe we aren't," said the wizard. "But I think we are all going to need a little help before the end." Fungal Flap scanned a nearby tree and with one quick motion reached into the low branches and brought out a squirrel. He brought the squirrel up to his lips before releasing it. The squirrel looked at each of us and scampered off through the trees. "We need to get to Destiny as quickly as possible."
What happened with the squirrel?
It ran off.
But why did he get it up to his...
He grabbed the squirrel and pulled it up to his face, and then he's released it, and it's run off.
Oh.
We need to get...
Any reason? Oh.
We need to get to Destiny as quickly as possible. Spoon, will you stand with me and fight for your village? Fungal Flaps looked at Spoon, searching her eyes for a glimmer of the small child he had said goodbye to many winters ago. Spoon stared into the darkness. "I don't know if I can be the daughter you want me to be, but I will do all I can to help." Fungal Flaps smiled, tears filling his eyes. "So be it. We shall fight until the end, to whatever end." Meanwhile, the black stallion paced nervously back and forth along the country lane.
Oh, I forgot this was a thing.
The were-ferrets were spitting and hissing at each other as they continued to make short work of a brace of rabbits they'd just caught. But the black figure stood motionless, staring at the twinkling lights of destiny in the distance.
What page are we on now?
We are nearly... Sorry.
It's all right.
Spoon's head was spinning as she and the others ran towards the village. Why did her mother not tell her the truth? What if they arrived in Destiny and they were too late? Did she really just witness her dad kissing a squirrel? As they reached the outskirts of the village, she had at least one of those questions answered. Bobble and Niggles stood side by side in full armour to greet them. "All right, boss," said Bobble. "We were beginning to think you weren't coming," said Niggles, whose accent had changed somewhat since the first time. The two creatures explained that they had warned nearby villages, and when the Black Knight had arrived, he had become frustrated and was last seen heading for Destiny. "We're not a moment too soon. Everybody spread out. Bobble, Niggles, you take the left. Tommy, Tony and Colin, you take the right. And Spoon, you stand by my side." The wizard reached out to hold Spoon's hand. "Courage, child. When the time comes, you'll know what to do." The silence was suddenly broken by the screeches of what could only be were-ferrets, followed by the sound of a horse's hoofs which grew louder every second. The temperature around them seemed to grow colder as the Black Knight came into view. Fungal Flaps let go of Spoon's hand and took a few steps forward as the Black Knight dismounted.
Might.
You are in my way, old man, the Black Knight hissed.
Always got an interesting voice.
Spoon, it's probably going to be different next time you hear.
Okay.
Spoon could see that the were-ferrets were moving left and right towards the men and Bobble and Niggles. You don't belong here, the wizard boomed. Go back to the dances whence you came. He now had his staff pointing at the black figure. Ha ha ha. You think you and your little friends can stand in my way? The Black Knight's voice seemed to scratch at Spoon. The Black Knight's voice seemed to scratch at Spoon's skin like 1,000 moths.
Oh, nice. That would be an orangutan.
Yep, suddenly everything exploded, and before Spoon could react, there were sparks, fur, and the sound of steel against steel all around her. One of the were-ferrets was attacking Tommy
Were-ferrets?
Were-ferrets were attacking Tommy Turndeaf's throat, while Tony and Colin tried to save their friend. Niggles and Bobble were having a bit more luck with their attacker and were repeatedly hitting it over the head with a large saucepan. The Black Knight and Fungal Flaps were a blur in front of Spoon, but suddenly Spoon felt a jolt of pain in her leg as the third were-ferret, who had gone unnoticed, sunk its sharp teeth into her. Spoon span round and in an instant...
Sorry, can I just... You're now calling them were-ferrets?
Yeah.
I thought they were were-ferrets.
Well, were-ferrets. Right, Spoon span round in an instant, ripped the cursed were-ferret creature from her and threw it across the street. But within seconds it was up and running towards her again. Spoon grabbed the first thing at hand and threw it at the oncoming beast. The duck bounced off the creature's head, making it stumble. Spoon picked up another duck and hurled it at the stunned animal. Bullseye! It hit its mark, and the third had the were-ferret running off into the night.
Change again.
The men seemed to have overcome their attacker, and Bobble and Niggles had theirs tied up. Now, but to Spoon's dismay, Fungal Flaps was laid on the floor with the Black Knight looming above him, sword in hand. Spoon ran to her father's aid and stood between Fungal Flaps and the knight. And who do we have here? The knight laughed. I've defeated their champions, so they send a milkmaid to protect them? Spoon raised her head and looked directly into the Dark Knight's eyes. Better a curdler than a murderer.
There's a lot of our own jokes in here.
I know. She threw up her hand and a white light erupted from her fingertips, spreading out and enveloping both her and her father. There were more flashes from either side of the Black Knight, and he collapsed in a heap on the floor. Spoon was vaguely aware of two bearded men standing either side of the Black Knight, and she heard a voice. It's okay, Spoon. You can let go. You're safe now. One of the old men was reaching out for Spoon's hand as everything faded into darkness. Spoon awoke to see a bearded man looking at her intently. Fungal Flaps? She said in a shaky voice. No. I'm Nipple Slap the Pink. Your father is over there talking to Batterflange the Beige. The other two wizards, seeing Spoon awake, walked over. I was just telling your father that it was lucky the squirrel reached us in time, otherwise who knows what would have happened. I think we would have been all right, Fungal Flap said, and he winked at Spoon. As for the rest of you, you have all shown great courage, and for that I feel that a reward is appropriate. The wizard bent down and picked up the Black Knight's discarded sword. Tommy, Tony and Colin, kneel before me. I knight all three of you for your unflinching valour in the face of pure evil. Arise, certificate. Arise, certain death. Arise, circumcision.
I was waiting for that one.
There were cheers from the townsfolk who had started to emerge from their safety of their houses, and in minutes there was food and drink for all as they celebrated their heroes. Spoon and Fungal Flap sat a little way off from the others. Where will you go now? Spoon asked nervously. Go? Well, I'm not going anywhere, my dear. I think you and me have some catching up to do. Batterflange and Nipple Slap can take care of things for a while. Spoon and Fungal Flaps embraced, and over his daughter's shoulder, Fungal Flaps nodded at the other two wizards through tear-filled eyes. Batterflange nodded back at Fungal Flaps, and Nipple Slap cupped his hands to his mouth to be heard above the merriment. The squirrel said you kissed him. Everybody gasped, and then there was silence. The end. Right, that was long. I apologise for how long that was, but I just wanted to have a complete story there. So
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. It was longer than the first bits, the whole podcast, but it was.
Was
nice.
it really?
Yeah, it was.
I'm terribly sorry about
18 minutes longish.
No way.
Yeah,
I timed
way.
myself reading it. It was.
Oh
like,
no, actually, that's about right.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's a very good story. I like the lots of little jokes in there. It was very
Yes.
nice.
Crowbarring everything that I could think of into
Yeah.
these stories, like always.
It might be a little bit of a longer episode, this one.
Will it? Okay.
Yes.
We'll just have to deal with that.
Yeah. Or not us. They will.
They will.
They'll
They
have to
will
deal with it.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It was very nice.
what's up next?
I was just saying I enjoyed your story. Will there be a sequel?
It could be. There's
Maybe.
all sorts of things. Batterflange and Nipple Slap. Obviously, they've got their own adventures now. And then I don't know whether Fungal Flaps and Spoon and Spoon's mum and that will all what will happen there. And
That's the
obviously, there's a spin-off of Bobble and Niggles.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're quite welcome.
So I've got my next story. Now, as you know, I wrote a story earlier on today. Now, I appreciate I actually wrote quite a long story. It's really, really long.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you a segment of it.
Oh, right. Will I be able to see the rest of the story after this?
No.
Can I just say so before we start? There was something funny happened the other day, didn't it? Because I came in here and you'd actually started writing the story, but you'd written the word title,
Yep.
and but nothing else, and then you'd written
The word text.
right? And I thought you were going to go for it, but when I had spoke to you the other night, you'd lost that.
Yeah, I'd
It
lost
didn't
that, yeah.
save. But you'd
No, my
only
computer
written
crashed.
Your computer crashed, so you'd lost
You wrote the word title
and text,
yeah.
right? But
I've rewritten
done
it.
something.
Yeah, I've rewritten it. So this story is called Dice of Mud.
Right, Dice of Mud.
Yeah. Now the segment I'm going to read to you is chapter 438.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So look, there might be some bits might not necessarily make sense.
So can you paint a picture of
No.
where we are? No. So you can't. No, because we're going into
Look,
that.
look, this is the thing. Look, some of it will make perfect sense. Some of it you might have to ask questions around it.
Okay.
And see what's going on.
This is going to be a long episode.
So I'll just start off. All right, okay.
Right, ready? Okay.
Okay, ready.
Can you tell me what it's called again?
Dice of Mud.
Dice of Mud.
Yeah, Dice of Mud. It'll make perfect sense. It won't. Right. They travelled through the night up a steep hill, but the Mount Fredor never seemed to get any closer. Sebastian hesitated, catching his breath, and then called out to his comrades ahead of him. Can we please rest? The mountain will still be there tomorrow, as it has been every day since the clap.
Since the clap?
Since the clap, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just earlier in the story, there was two continents that clashed together and they clapped, and the clap happened long ago.
And was Sebastian born with that speech impediment, or?
Sebastian's an old man.
Oh, is he? Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Sebastian's an old man. Grogan responded in a deep voice. Soon, Sebastian. We're not far from the river, and we need to top up our reserves.
Okay.
Just as Grogan finished, they reached the peak of the hill, and the whole party stopped in their tracks. The river had just started to come into view, joined by an orangey glow just ahead of it. Damien was atop his horse, and was the first to make out the silhouettes that accompanied the orange glow.
Sorry, Damien was a topless horse.
Damien was atop of a horse.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah. Grogan muttered under his breath. Just to clarify, Damien is a Mexican wizard sloth.
Right.
Yeah. So that was Spanish there.
And when you said orcs, do you mean orcs as in awkward or orcs as in...
No, orcs as in the creatures. Yeah.
Okay.
So Damien is a sloth.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes him a bit longer to say some things.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
I got with... Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, it took a bit too long.
Yeah, sorry.
The group stood still for a moment, but without saying a word, they all split to either side of the hill, where conveniently there were 2 rocks which could be used as cover. I need to work out which character this is so I get the accent right. All right. If we've seen them, then there is a good chance they could also seen us, called out Sebastian. Then, as if to answer Sebastian, a deep and loud blast came from the orcs, the tune of a battle horn. Nigel, Mark and Babs climbed out of Sebastian's pockets and positioned themselves upon the rock.
Nice.
Mark pulled out a magical sausage which he had stolen from the catacombs of the Sun People. He took a big bite out of the sausage, which then immediately regenerated itself. This gave him the ability to count quickly how many orcs they faced, which were now running up the hill. Not like the song by Kate Bush. 38, he called out. It says 38 orcs.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Just for clarify. By this point, Nigel had taken off his hat to reveal a modelling balloon. He inflated the balloon and twisted it into a cutlass-style sword. He grabbed Babs as the sword he had crafted starts to lift him into the air. Whilst leaving the ground, Babs pinched her nose and pushed with all her might. As she pushed, her hair grew longer and longer. She continued to do this until herself and Nigel were about 2 metres in the air. Sebastian took the end of Babs' hair and tied it to his wrist.
Right.
Yeah, like a balloon. On the other side of the hill, Grogan was preparing himself by filling his shoes with sand. This made no real impact onto Grogan, apart from increasing his height by about 2 inches and also making him feel more confident. Damien was still dismounting his horse when the sun started to rise over the horizon behind them. So he's still happy so far.
Yeah, I'm happy. So there's orcs charging towards them.
Yep.
Sebastian is floating in it.
No, Sebastian's not floating. He's holding on to the tiny people.
Oh, he's holding on to the tiny people and an
And leaving his
inflatable
pockets.
cutlass. He's the magic sausage is back in his pocket, or is he wielding it?
Oh, he's still got the magic sausage in hand, just in case he needs it again. Okay. We'll continue. Dark shadows stretched across the landscape as the sun began to light up the back of the trees. Just to let you know, back of the trees is similar to the front of the trees. I realised that as I wrote it, that there's no back to a tree, is there?
Well, it depends, really. If you've got a face on it.
Yeah. True, yeah. Amongst the shadows was a figure. The figure stood tall, approximately 6'8". It had 2 protrusions on either side that looked like arms. In one arm appeared to be a stick, which was shaped exactly like a stick. On top of the figure stood a tall rectangle, a bit like a mohawk.
Right.
"Is that Paul?" muttered Nigel, who was still floating above Sebastian and Mark's head. "It can't be," called out Mark. "Why not? He could be our saviour, with his fast thinking and brute strength. I really hope it's him. I've missed him ever since... well, you know. I just wish I could have saved him," responded Nigel. "I promise you, it's not him." Mark was starting to get more agitated. "How do you know?" cried Nigel. You could hear he was beginning to well up with tears. "First of all, he's not dead. I keep telling you that was just a dream. Secondly, because that is a pile of rocks that Grogan and I put together a couple of days ago when we were bored. You watched us do it," Mark shouted. "Okay, but that may be true. But how do you know he's not dead? I miss him." "Because he's standing over there with Grogan and Damien," Mark exclaimed. Nigel looked over to the other side of the hill where Paul was waving at him with a nervous smile on his face. Nigel waved back sheepishly. The group looked back down the hill at the horde of orcs approaching them. A number of them were still running, but about 8 of them had tripped on the ascent and slid back down the hill. They had fallen into the fast-running river and been washed away. The other 32 still made their way up. "I think we have time," called out Paul. "It took us 3 days to climb up the other side, and this is longer as it goes all the way down to the river. If we wait here for a couple of days, Then we can pick off the stragglers when they arrive. Damien, what do you think?
Oh, no. Oh, he's Spanish, isn't he?
Yeah.
Mexican.
Yeah. That's it. You got a question?
I have got a very good, by the way. I like. There are many, many characters in there.
Yep.
How many orcs were running up the hill?
There was initially 38.
And then 8 of them slid down the hill.
Yep, so now there's 32.
Because that was. I did think that sausage is not working.
2 of them had children.
You need to take that sausage back.
Well, it's because the sausage regenerated, doesn't it?
It did what? And
To make sure.
So it enables him to count things,
Yeah.
but incorrectly,
Yeah.
but not completely accurately.
Yeah. So,
No, I like that.
So Damien's a Mexican sloth wizard.
Yeah.
Grogan, I
There's
forgot.
a lot of stuff going on.
I'll be honest, I forgot Grogan was Scottish, but he's a Scottish dwarf who is self-conscious about his height.
Yeah.
Sebastian's an old man. He's just an old man.
Was he the one who was putting the sand in his shoes?
No, Grogan was.
All right, so that was even more insensitive, wasn't it?
Yeah. Nigel, Mark, and Babs, they're tiny people that live in Sebastian's pockets.
Yeah.
And then Paul is a warrior elf who was a misfit amongst his elves, as his mum was an elf, but his dad was a human, and now he's into punk rock.
Cool. So you got a bit of backstory for him.
Yep.
I like that.
But yeah, that's the. That's
So what was it called again?
Dice of Mud.
Dice of Mud.
Yeah.
So where does the title come in?
Well, not in this chapter.
Wow. All right.
It gets explained in another chapter.
Does a sausage in further chapters? I'm interested to know whether the sausage becomes even more inaccurate and causes mayhem.
Well, they got the
Sorry.
sausage from the catacombs of the
Sun
Sun
People.
people earlier on in the story. Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you missed that bit because we haven't got time.
No. But my point being is, was it when he first stole that and used it? Was it able to calculate things correctly?
It's really good at the magic sausage. It's really good at counting other things, but
Yeah.
not so great at counting orcs.
Orcs, right.
Because what it was doing it was counting their noses. Yeah.
Well, and some of them
and
had
two of them.
and some of
Two
them
of
didn't
them,
have any.
two of them didn't have noses,
Oh right.
so it didn't count them initially.
Oh right. Didn't recognise them as
Yeah.
orcs.
Yeah, that's
Excellent.
the issue with the magic sausage.
Yeah. It's it's magic, but it's no
But these-
abraca.
The magic tiny
abraca
people,
Labrador.
because Sebastian, to be honest, Sebastian's just there because he has the people living in his pockets.
Oh, it's like a vehicle, really, for them.
Yeah, well, they're just there. Like they're a bit like moths living amongst his clothes, but yeah,
But less destructive,
yeah,
more helpful.
yeah.
Brilliant.
Yep.
Well, there you go. I think yet again we've picked a genre and we've attacked it and
Destroyed
shown
it.
how easy it is to write these sort of stories
Yeah.
and how we're not published already.
Well,
I don't know.
To be honest, because it's chapter 438, and I think that's only about halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be quite epic. That's going to be about 3 or 4 films, at least.
Sorry, no, 40 films.
40 films, right?
40 films, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like
Be
the
a bit of a
MCU.
continuity problem with the actors in it, I think.
Yeah, because Sebastian's old at the start. So.
Oh, God. That's not going to work, is it?
Ooh, dear.
And sausages don't keep for that long either.
There's a magic sausage.
Oh,
I don't
sorry,
think you've
yeah,
really
yeah.
caught on to the fact that there's a magic sausage
That's very true, yeah.
that came from the catacombs of the Sun People.
Yeah, so it was quite warm there as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, do you know much about the Sun People?
No, because I'm waiting to read the previous...
Ah, right.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a very good adventure. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Who had the sausage? I've forgotten.
Right. Well, there you go
Was it
then.
Mark? Yeah. Yes, it was Mark. Mark had the sausage.
Mark had the sausage. It was important we got there.
Yep.
So, that's it for another week, isn't it?
Yep.
It is. So very well done on your 2 stories you wrote this morning.
Sorry about that.
What do you mean?
The stories.
Don't be sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
If you would like to make a complaint about the stories,
if you've got some issues with these stories about continuity of accents and perhaps anything really about them,
you can complain on our website, fatherandsundays.com, on the contact us page, or you can leave a comment, suggestion or question on there. You can also email us at contactus@fatherandsundays.com as well, if you do want
your
to.
Complaints.
You can also message us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, Threads,
put your
whatever it
complaints
is.
on there.
You can do it on those as well. But all the episodes are available on the website, but they're also available in your chosen podcast platform.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go then. Are we aware of what we're doing next week?
We are.
Yes. Okay. I believe that next week's episode could be, not definitely,
Likely be
bears.
bears. We come from fantasy stories to bears.
Right, I think it's going to be a good one.
This is weird, isn't it?
What, doing this?
This podcast is odd because, we've just gone from fantasy stories. Last week we spoke about Walt Disney. Well, not last time. Last time we spoke about Walt Disney.
Yeah.
This time we're talking about fantasy stories. That kind of links in. And then next week we're talking about bears.
Well, Winnie the Pooh. Walt Disney.
All right.
Baloo.
Fair enough.
There you go. I don't know. There's a thread going through all these, surely.
Who's Fred?
Exactly.
Anyway.